Hello there. Welcome back to another episode of Anything with Alvin, where today we're going to be taking on making the famous sandwich of Portugal, the Francesinha. Now, the most interesting thing to me was not only the quantity, but the variety of meats in this sandwich. I was really curious to see how they would go well together. I mean, this is a well-known sandwich there for a reason, and I thought it'd be really fun to try it out. This episode is sponsored by Bombas, aka the world's most comfortable socks. And while they are comfy, the best part is that for each item purchased, one is donated. They've donated over 100 million articles of clothing so far across 50 states. So you're not just getting your new favorite pair of socks, you're helping Bombas donate some to someone else too. Feel good and do good with Bombas, knowing your purchase is doing some real good. New customers get 20% off their first purchase. Just go to bombas.com/babish and use code babish20 at checkout. Now, according to legends, this sandwich was invented by a man who came from France and lived in Portugal. He made kind of a version of a croque monsieur with a hot gravy, but some people didn't really know how to pronounce that really well, so they just called it the Little French Sandwich, or the Francesinha. Whether or not that's true, I don't really know, but I think it's a great story. So let's get started. So first we're going to start with making the fries because that's going to take a little bit of time. So making fries from scratch, we're going to take a couple of these potatoes. We have 3 russet potatoes here. Then I'm just going to peel them really quick and then cut them into about 1/2-inch batons. I kind of like these fries a little on the thicker side for being homemade because that way you get a nice bite in the middle. Once those fries have been cut up, I'm going to blanch these potatoes in water. So that way the water will remove the excess starch on the surface, and when they fry, you'll get a more crispy crust. These will blanch for at least 30 minutes or so. Okay, next we're going to work on our meat. I have 2 kinds of sausages here. One is just a typical pork sausage that you might find at the grocery store. One is a linguica, or kind of like a spicy sausage. I'm sure that's a lot of good spices and flavorings mixed in. I'm not sure if it's the same as chorizo, but I think it's its own little thing, and for this purpose, I think it's a really cool idea. Now, the way they made it in the original video we referenced this sandwich from is that they kind of split the sausages down the middle and use it and press it almost into the bread as a ground beef kind of mixture. So we are going to do exactly that. Cutting the casing, taking these sausages out, and making sure to split it down the middle so that way when we push it against the bread, it'll have an even surface that which we can cook it in. Okay, not only does this sandwich have 2 kinds of sausage, it also has steak. So this is just some chuck roast that we found at the store. And I'm going to emulate those quick minute steaks that you might see. I'm going to take this somewhat marbled piece of meat, cut a little crosshatch pattern to loosen up those tendons and any connective tissue, and then pound it flat until we have a very thin looking steak. Perfect. While our potatoes are blanching, now I'm going to get started on making the sauce. In a medium saucepan, I'm combining a tablespoon of butter, some oil, and 1 yellow onion that has been chopped. This is going to saute until it gets a little bit of color on it, about 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to add some port wine. This is 1/2 cup of ruby port, which is a dessert wine that is found and originated from Porto in Portugal. One of my personal favorite things to drink. Using it in cooking also makes a lot of sense. Then we're also going to follow with a bottle of this Portuguese lager, which is also found in Porto. 2 kinds of alcohol, 2 kinds of sausage. This is kind of looking like a fun recipe. Once the alcohol has reduced about 30 to 50% or so, then we can follow up with some more ingredients. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of piri piri sauce, or kind of like a spicy pepper sauce, 2 cups of chicken stock, a can of diced tomatoes, and 1 bay leaf, maybe 2, and a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Letting that simmer and cook for 30 minutes until it's nice and combined. Once the sauce has kind of become a little thin gravy, I'm going to take out both of those bay leaves and immersion blend this until the sauce has been fully pureed. Then I'm going to sieve this so that we get a nice smooth gravy until we are ready to use it for our final finished sandwich. So this sauce is still a little bit on the thin side. I'm going to use a little bit of a cornstarch slurry to bring it together. Now that our potatoes have been blanched in the water, we're going to take them out, let them dry a bit, and then we're going to fry them for the first time on a low heat. 300 to 325 should be able to cook the potato through without browning it too much, because our goal here is to kind of cook the potato and almost get it to a point where it's a little floppy and limp, but the starches are starting to separate on the surface so that when they're ready to be cooled, they're going to go back in the oil and fry a second time. I found that double frying or even triple frying fries at home can give you the best way of getting that crispy effect, and I think that works out pretty well here. Okay, once the fries are out and looking a little bit brown, but not too golden brown and start cooling, we're going to cut cheese into these fun little shapes. We decided to go with Havarti or Munster as a backup because those 2 also melt pretty well and are easy to cut. Now the fun part is that the cheese slices seem to be cut with a little half moon shape. I think the purpose of this little indent is to allow the placing of the cheese slices to perfectly enclose a beautiful egg yolk that goes on top of the sandwich when the sandwich is starting to be assembled, which I think is a brilliant idea. You just take a stack of the cheese, use a little bottle cap or something similar to kind of cut through, and there you have it. Kind of like jigsaw pieces, except every single piece looks the same and they won't fit together. Once the cheese slices are done, we're going to fry the fries at a higher temperature, 350 to 375 degrees, until these fries are golden and crispy. I'm going to take these a little bit darker because there's going to be a gravy that goes onto them. So I think having a more well done crispy fry should make a good combination for this dish. Alright, let's go ahead and assemble our sandwich. Now in the video, they're also using extra meat. So first, on a slice of typical white sandwich bread goes down 2 slices of mortadella, or 1, depending on how meaty you want it. Then we're going to sort of line the edges of this bread with the normal breakfast sausage, the pork sausage that kind of creates a barrier. Now, we're going to go down and press the linguica, the spicier red looking sausage in the middle. And wow, that looks pretty cool. Never really thought about that, but kind of like the visual of how the other sausages are almost creating those safety ramps at a bowling alley for the middle one, because the middle one has a crazy explosion of flavor. Anyways, we're gonna put this into a pan face down with a little bit of oil, kind of pan fry these until the sausage has turned a nice golden brown and has started to cook through. Now this does have a lot of meat on it, so it's gonna take some time. So let's give this a flip after a while and check. Oh, fell off a little bit. That's okay, we'll get you back on the horse. And we're going to continue by taking that out and searing our steak in the same pan. Once our steaks have been seared and salted pretty adequately, they're going to go directly on top of those sausages from earlier on top of that bread. Believe it or not, we are going to add even more meat to this wonderful sandwich. Now goes on some ham slices, followed by more cheese, and then back on a piece of bread and into the pan to sear until everything is cooked through and the cheese is nice and melty. That's going to take a few minutes on both sides because there is a lot of meat in this sandwich and we have to warm the cheese through. But once that is done, the sandwich is going to exit. We're going to heat up a little bit of butter to quickly cook an egg sunny side up. Once the egg is done, it's going to go on top of our stacked meat sandwich right in the middle, and we're going to carefully place 4 to 5 cheese slices directly around the egg yolk, making sure that the little indent earlier is perfectly hugging the bright yellow orb. Now this is the most satisfying part of the video. Can't really express how much joy I have from just perfectly fitting cheese onto an egg, like I've never done that before. But this makes me happy. We're going to generously pile the fries around our sandwich, as if we were at a diner and serving this to a customer that was very hungry. Then we're going to take the warm gravy that we made from earlier and generously spoon that both on top of the sandwich, on top of the egg, on top of the cheese, and all over the fries, making sure that the heat from the sauce is hot enough to melt the cheese into a nice gooey fashion. And then we are going to dig in. And I will say, this looks very exciting. The great thing about this is that for whatever reason, all the meats, you can still taste them and they're delicious. It really is kind of like a croque monsieur if you've ever had one, just kind of with more meat, like a steak and eggs on the side. But the gravy, I will say, ties everything together. That nice bright, kind of sour but still delicious sauce both provides moisture and a nice balance of flavor to both the fries, the egg, the meats, and the bread. Now this was really delicious. I kind of had to stop myself from eating it to let everybody else in the studio try it, but we did have a very, very good time just being surprised how good this was. I can tell why the sandwich is so popular all throughout Portugal, and I know that our version probably doesn't come close to the real thing, but the fact that we are so impressed by this version means that the real deal has got to be so much better. And I know that a lot of the shops have very different versions of the Francesinha, maybe with seafood or somewhat different meats and sauces, so there's probably a really cool world out there where every day you can have a different one of these sandwiches. But today, Tony was the lucky one to take this entire plate off camera and eat it to the side. Thanks, Tony. This episode is sponsored by Bombas, aka the world's most comfortable socks. And while they are comfy, the best part is that for each item purchased, one is donated. They've donated over 100 million articles of clothing so far across all 50 states. So you're not just getting your new favorite pair of socks, you're helping Bombas donate some to someone else too. Feel good and do good with Bombas, knowing your purchase is doing some real good. New customers get 20% off their first purchase. Just go to bombas.com/babish and use code babish20 at checkout.